Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Now, what I'd like to discuss in today's episode of Game Discussion is similar to what I discussed in a previous episode. However, the genre that I would like to talk about today isn't really the FPSs, as you can see by the title. It is the horror game genre. Now, there's a lot to break down in this, but I'll just try and do my best to, narrow it down to a few reasons why I have a bit of concern about this genre. Now, to break it down a bit better, I feel like I should discuss its history and explain as to why I believe that the genre blew up in a short time span, as well as the titles that have helped get the genre established to where it is and its popularity right now. A really good candidate was the Resident Evil games, as they were known for their atmosphere, and it helped pave the way to more advanced horror games down the line, such as the Dead Space series, which is to this day one of the most popular survival horror series of all time. I mean, the enemy design combined with the phobia of deep space, known as astrophobia, really helped make that franchise what it is, I guess, in records, because I can't necessarily say today since, unfortunately, DICE is... No, is it DICE or was it someone else? So, well, you guys know, but they died, so... Not the people who made the game, but Activision just basically killed them, if I'm not mistaken. Either Activision or EA, excuse me. Not to get off topic. But then we have, who is it? Who's next? I'm sorry, guys. But then we have I'm kind of off topic. What am I doing? Excuse me. But these titles have helped get horror games the recognition that they needed for so long. You know, I can look back to my younger days about Dead Space and Resident Evil, and my cousin would always try and dare me to play them, but I knew how infamous they were, and so I was, a bit shy back in the day to the idea of playing them. But these games, the Resident Evil series, the Dead Space series, to me, in my eyes, these were the apex of horror games. These really got the horror genre to where it was very popular, kind of made it mainstream, and really paved the way for a lot of the games. But I feel like, once again, this was the apex, and from here, it kind of had quite the tumble, in my opinion. Now, transitioning into the section of the video discussing why I feel like a lot of the newer titles that came out after that began to get a bit stale, I kind of want to start with two titles that became the staple of what horror games are now. The first being Outlast, which, in my eyes, has just basically laid the groundwork for all forms of big, scary, must-run, horror games. And then we have the famous Five Nights at Freddy's, which I will just refer to as FNAF so that I don't have to constantly say Five Nights at Freddy's. But let's just cover one at a time, and I'll just start with Outlast. Now, over the years, it has become renowned as one of the best horror games of all time, and that's because of the tension, the music, the atmosphere, as well as the characters that were in the game. And going into the FNAF series, it was interesting because it put a spin on horror, because instead of running away from, enemies and whatnot, the enemies were coming to you, and you were in a small, closed space, and you would try and hold out until sunrise, right? But, why do I consider them not that great? Why don't I consider these titles why do I consider them stale, personally? Well, here's the thing about that. It's because they utilize the most overused mechanic, or should I say technique? It's probably more of a technique in horror game history, and that is jump scares. Now, why are jump scares overused, and why do I personally find them cheap, you may ask? Well, over the course of humanity, allow me to just give you a brief history lesson. Over the course of humanity, we have been in situations that gave us two options. It is scientifically known as the fight or flight response, and we give it to see whether we can handle the problem with a physical confrontation, or if fleeing is the best decision to make. Now, you take that same built-in response into every human being, and put us in a situation where we can't fight. And all we can do is run, and what you have is a heart racing reaction that gets the blood flowing, and mentally, you know that the game is just that, it's just a game. However, your body still reacts with the fight or flight response, and since you can't fight because it's the video game, you know what happens? Your body prepares to get you to get ready to run just in case, and that's what gets your heart going. Now, Outlast and the FNAF series have just basically taken that, and that's it. You know, like, they just play on that fight or flight response. Now, I don't want to just say that, you know, like, they're bad, but their entire, like, fan base in, like, their series has just been based around the jump scare and the running away and whatnot in the flight or fight response. And so, like, I feel like if they didn't play on that, then, you know, they wouldn't really have gotten the popularity that they got now. And then, because those games did so well, you know, companies that want a quick payout emulate the same thing over and over again, and, like, they just copy it, whether it's a FNAF copy where the objective is to keep candles lit and or some monster will come and get you, or an Outlast copy where they insert a non-engageable enemy where you got no choice but to run away. And, you know, like, and we've seen these games time and time again, and they claim to be something new, but they're not, because they're just cheaply made copies trying to get good payouts, right? So finally, this brings us to the rant kind of portion of the video, where I'm just going to kind of give my personal thoughts and whatnot. And I just want to start by stating that I do enjoy, like, a decent horror game, and my favorite horror game of all time, you know, and at the rate that it is now, it's probably going to stay that way forever, considering that there's no effort being put forth, is Alien Isolation. Now, why was Alien Isolation my favorite? Well, I find Alien Isolation to be the sum amalgamation of all that you'd want in a horror game. You had the atmosphere. However, you did have the ability to defend yourself, but the alien was unkillable, so you couldn't just kill everything, and so there was still a certain level of caution and fear that was employed, so you couldn't get cocky. But you could utilize that same enemy to attack others, which in my opinion is so underutilized in these horror games these days. For some reason, all of these enemies just want to fight you, but they can't fight any other person in the game. They're all just trying to fight you. And so to me, I find that mechanic to be severely underutilized compared to what they did with Alien Isolation, where you could lure the alien to engage a bunch of fossils that you might not have really had the resources to take down, right? So everything in that game gave you the ability to feel powerful, but not invincible. You know, if you got ahead of yourself, it would almost always result in a death. And, you know, personally, once again, this is my opinion and whatnot, I don't find Outlast and FNAF and their endless clones to be as good as people claim that they are. Like, taking away all of your power, you know, like, to me, is just simply a play on the fight or flight response. And in my eyes, the horror games are, like, on the decline due to the fact that they didn't stick with their original formula, like Resident Evil, and which one did I just say? Excuse me. Resident Evil and, gosh darn it, what did I say? I can't believe I forgot. Dead Space, excuse me. Resident Evil and Dead Space. Those two games gave you horror, but you could still at least defend yourself, you know? But with these later titles, they just said, alright, you just run away, or you can't run away, you just have to survive. And so they just took away from that, in my opinion. And I feel like all these clones out here just try and emulate FNAF and Outlast, and so we don't really see any more innovation, and we're stuck with what we have today. You know, I personally would rather they stuck with the original formula that made horror games get established to where they are now, than to just have them doing this repeatedly. You know, if they just stick to this path of, like, just trying to clone FNAF and Outlast with the running away and the just survival horror where you're stuck in a small space and you just have to survive. All I really feel like horror games at this rate will be good for is, a one and done video on them by a YouTuber so people get their reactions, the clickbait thumbnails of the mouth agape because they're so terrified and whatnot. Because, like, they also usually don't have any replay value, so no one is actually going to want to just pay to play the game themselves, and so that'll just end up killing the horror franchise. But with that being said, that's probably going to bring this address to the horror genre, whatever you want to call it, game discussion to a close. I know that I was kind of a bit all over the place in that. I kind of want to just talk a bit about the horror games and whatnot because, I don't necessarily play them that much anymore. I did really enjoy them at one point, but now they're just clones repeatedly. I mean, we talk about like shooters these days in my previous video about like the FPS genre, but my gosh, you always see some kind of horror game where they're trying to emulate Outlast or they're trying to emulate FNAF, and I just find that pathetic, to be honest. So with that being said, that's going to conclude this. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, rate the video what you think it deserves. Tell me what you'd like to see in the future in the comments below. Feel free to check out Amino. It is linked in the comments. Feel free to check out my BitChute. It will be linked in the About Me page of my channel. And I will see all of you in the next one. Take care.